I'm Travis Bader, and this is the Silvercore Podcast. Join me as I discuss matters related to hunting, fishing, and outdoor pursuits with the people and businesses that comprise the community. If you're new to Silvercore, be sure to check out our website, www.silvercore.ca, where you can learn more about courses, services, and products that we offer, as well as how you can join the Silvercore Club, which includes $10 million in North America-wide liability insurance to ensure you are properly covered during your outdoor adventures. This is part 2 of the Train Your Brain to Win series with Ryan Steacy. If you haven't listened to part 1, do yourself a favor and check it out. There's some fantastic content in that episode that can be applied to your life regardless of what sport or endeavor you're trying to excel in. Also, when competing, Ryan is using high-end rifle barrels made by the Canadian company International Barrels, or IBI. If you haven't checked them out yet, and you're looking to get that extra edge in accuracy, I highly recommend them. So Ryan.
Yes.
We're back.
We are.
We had an excellent podcast. There's some great takeaways there. And what I'm hoping we can do in this podcast is expand a little bit more on the secrets of mental marksmanship, which of course is the title of the book by Linda Miller and Keith Cunningham. Yep. And you talked about that one extensively. And my thinking was I'd like to do something where we can talk about what you did prior to the match, during the match, and if there's any regime afterwards that you went through. And coincidentally enough, when I've been reading through this manual, this book, Keith and Linda do the exact same thing, but they add one extra piece in, and they call it planning, preparation, in the moment, and after the moment. Yep. So very, very similar, except they add a little planning phase. So I'm wondering if we could maybe follow their format and take a look at some of the planning that went into place prior to this competition.
Yeah, well, on the planning side of things, it's going to be a little bit sparse, just simply because work was so busy that there wasn't much chance for me to get out and actually do much in the way of practice. The service rifle competitions that I usually shoot in BC here got moved over onto Vancouver Island because there were range issues with Volks Range in Chilliwack. And due to lots of different circumstances, I wasn't able to make it over to the island, or I decided not to go. So the actual shooting and practice portion and the plan to put things in place and remember what my positions feel like and what it feels like to break a good shot, that all kind of went out the window because there was no practice. I actually, before I went to Ottawa this year, I fired about 20 rounds through my AR just to make sure I had a basic zero going, and that was about it. I hadn't shot it since last year at the same competition.
Holy crow.
I was a little bit freaked out going in because I wasn't 100% sure what was going to happen.
That's got to play with the mind.
Well, I mean, I kind of knew what was going to happen. Like, my mental processes say the same thing no matter whether I've had practice or not. One thing I did do a fair bit of was lots of visualization. I played in the kneeling a little bit without the rifle, just at home, to make sure that, things were stretched out enough that I could actually get into it properly and that it felt comfortable.
Okay.
But other than that, it was just me thinking about what it feels like to shoot good shots in those different positions. In service rifle, for me, the toughest portion of the competition is the shooting at 200 meters because it's all positional. You're shooting sitting, kneeling, and some standing, as well as a bit of prone. So if you don't shoot well at 200 meters, you're probably hurting yourself for the rest of the match because the 300 and the 500 portions are all prone. So everybody shoots pretty well at those distances. Maybe the only difference between you and somebody else would be your wind calling ability, which definitely played a huge factor this year. But the 200 meter, all that positional stuff has to be good because you can screw yourself within the first 3 matches of the whole thing if you're not comfortable with shooting in the kneeling and the sitting position.
So this is something you're doing at home.
It is. And the reality is I didn't even have a rifle with me. So it's just simply getting into the position, starting standing, dropping into the position, and allowing my body, or maybe I shouldn't say body, because I think, didn't we touch on what muscle memory is last time?
We did a little bit, yes.
Yeah, so muscle memory there's no such thing. It is just simply your mind remembering and knowing what that position feels like. So I guess that exercise for me was really just to allow my mind to remember what a good kneeling position feels like and what a good sitting position feels like.
How much time would you spend doing that?
Not very much. I mean, I've been doing it for so long that it's pretty much ingrained into me. It's subconscious. But at the same time, you kind of need to have a little bit of practice or just get the body used to actually dropping into those positions so that you can refresh your brain as to what it feels like to be in a good position.
So do you have a mental checklist that you go through as you're getting into position?
Yeah, so when I'm on the range, there's definitely a mental checklist. When I'm just feeling out the positions, no, there's not really much in the way of a mental checklist. But once you're up on the range, yeah, there's a checklist. There's a huge pile of things that you have to make sure. You have to make sure you're aligned to the target. You have to make sure you're stable. You have to deal with your breathing, your trigger control. You have to make sure the sight picture is good before you squeeze off the shot, because if it's not good, that kind of doesn't work out so good in the point department.
Not so good.
Yeah.
So do you actually go A, B, C, D as you go through the list, or do you just kind of know, okay, right, lined up with the target, I'm not canting.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff in the beginning is a bit of a checklist. A, B, C. Yeah, I have to consciously think about, okay, I need to do this. I need to be aligned like this. I need to start on this target if there's multiple targets. I have to remember where to hold the sight picture, the crosshair. And then the squeezing of the trigger and all that stuff, hopefully, is subconscious. But after a while, all those items become subconscious as well. You do it enough. So for me, like we have matches where you run from one distance down to another and then drop into a position and shoot. So for me, the whole thing becomes subconscious. So I've lined up on targets enough in the sitting position to know that if I'm sort of canted in this direction, that I should line up properly. I should align myself properly on the target. So whereas if I was just starting a sitting match, I would sit on the ground and actually get into the position and then check my body alignment.
Okay.
You don't have time for that when you're doing some of the other ones. So I've done it enough times that I can get down there and just get a feel for where I am in relation to the target subconsciously, and that 99% of the time makes me relatively aligned to the target. So it's just a matter of doing it a million conscious times,
right,
to get it to be subconscious.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've been doing it for a long time. I guess in the beginning, you're going through the mental checklist. You're spending probably a lot more time in the planning phase than you have at this point.
Yeah.
Do you find that the planning phase at this point is still a crucial portion of the process?
I think for me, the planning phase is all subconscious as well at this point. I've done it so many times that it's second nature to me. The reality is my mind knows what I have to do in the planning phase as well in order to get the results that I want. So I don't consciously have to go through it, but I think for a lot of shooters, that's going to be a very important phase to make sure that you work your way through consciously. Because the only way to make it into that subconscious thing that you just get up on the line and you do automatically is to think about it consciously a whole pile of times in order for it to become subconscious.
I guess this abbreviated planning process at this point in your shooting career, was there any other things that we should be talking about in the planning, or should we just jump right into the preparation?
No, I can't really think of anything else, other than making sure that your training is promoting you to be as subconscious as you can be.
What do you mean by that?
I think the difference between me and other shooters is that it's not that I'm a better trigger puller than they are. It's just simply that I'm more subconscious on the trigger. When my eye sees the right sight picture, the gun fires, and it's like I'm not even pulling the trigger. It's because that trigger pull is subconscious. So the way I train to get that way is just with a single shot 22, and I shoot all standing, and when my eye sees the right sight picture, in the beginning, I consciously pulled the trigger to try and put that projectile in the center of the target. And it took a lot of shots with the single shot 22.
But cheaper with the 22.
Cheap. Yeah, you can do it with anything, really.
Sure.
But eventually, when my eye distinguished that the sight picture was correct, the gun just fired itself. And I think a lot of people have probably had those moments where they're at the range and they line up the sights, and they're focusing hard on the sight picture, and all of a sudden the gun fires. Boom. And you're like, oh, crap. And then you go up there and you're like, holy smokes, that sucker was right dead center in the middle. Well, that's a subconscious shot. The trick is making it do that every time.
Right.
And that's where I get a little bit ahead of people. It's easy for me because I've done this for so long that each shot that I fire is very, very subconscious. My eye sees the sight picture and the gun shoots itself. There's no conscious thought of me pulling the trigger. It's just like it does it by itself.
Very cool.
It's kind of a weird thing, but I think that's where I get ahead of other people. It's not necessarily in the trigger pulling department, the mechanics of all that stuff, the basic marksmanship skills. It's that there's no conscious thought of actually pulling the trigger. My focus is 100% on the sight picture.
It's very cool. Now, last time you were here, I brought in some donuts from the Delta Bakery.
That's right.
In Ladner. They're arguably the best
ever.
Best donuts in the Lower Mainland anyways.
Nice.
But you didn't have any. So I'm wondering, exercise, diet, sleep,
Yep.
does this play into your preparation program?
Well, for sure. I mean, obviously, the fitter you are, the easier it's going to be. In shooting sports where there's a cardio element, clearly, if you are fitter, it's going to be easier for you.
Right.
Now, a service rifle, and personally, I think in other shooting sports, there's ways to manage being not so in shape, but those are the secrets that I'm not sure I really want to tell everybody.
Fair enough.
Because you know what? Like the first few service rifle championships that I went to, I probably weighed between 210 and 220. And I'm only 6 feet tall.
Right.
And I'm, that's pretty heavy for me.
Yeah, you've lost a lot of weight.
I have, yeah. And this time when I went there, I was hovering at about 195. And I found that in positional shooting, obviously, with less gut, it makes it easier.
Big difference.
And on the rundowns, I was way less out of breath.
And what about sleep?
Sleep for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, when I'm shooting in Ottawa, there's a day that they shoot 2 stages. So they run a big first stage, and then the top 50 people from the first stage get to shoot the second stage, and that decides who the winner is. Mm-hmm. In between those 2 stages, they usually run a day where they shoot a bunch of team matches and falling plates and a bunch of fun stuff. But for me, I usually skip those days altogether and just concentrate on resting and focusing and making sure that I understand what I have to achieve the next time in the next stage, because the next stage really decides who the big kahuna is in the end.
Well, I find sleep, for me, probably for other people, plays a major role in your mental outlook.
Oh, for sure.
And we're talking about mental marksmanship. I got to imagine going into these competitions, I know you've been doing it for a while, but there's a certain amount of anticipation that accompanies it.
Yep.
And is there anything that you do to help quell those nerves and just to allow you to sleep and get that rest that you need?
Yeah, I mean, the whole mental management process, once you get to a certain point with your ability to control what you think, there are no nerves. You go there and it's like, I'm just going to do what I got to do. But it's getting to that point where you can quell all those weird little things that your mind tells you you're going to miss. You're going to have a crappy wind call. You're going to, one little mistake and it's over. Like that's your mind tells you all kinds of crazy stuff. And you get to a point where basically your mental management program shuts all that stuff off and it just doesn't allow it into your brain. Or, okay, I won't say it doesn't allow it into your brain, but when it comes into your brain, you automatically revert back to your mental management program. And it just tells you that's the dumbest thing you ever said to yourself.
You just don't feed it.
You just don't feed it. Yeah. You still think it, but it gets shuffled away and swept under the rug and never to be seen again in an awful hurry.
So reading through the Secrets of Mental Marksmanship, Keith and Linda give some tools to increase the power of your self-image. And they give a number of them here, and I'll just read them verbatim. They develop a positive approach to yourself and stick with it. Maintain a positive approach with others. Be consistent with yourself and others. Set a positive example for others to follow. Be the most positive and cheerful person on the range and in your life. And finally, they say a high tide raises all boats.
Absolutely. 100%.
I've had the opportunity to speak with some other people who are high achievers, highly successful in their career. And in fact, one of the more famous ones, Bear Grylls, he talks about being the most positive and cheerful people in the room. And it seems to be a common trait amongst these people that are high achievers and highly successful.
Yeah. When
you're on the range, there are all different personalities. There's a whole bunch of different people. And, in the shooting sports, it's been, I found it to be a highly encouraging atmosphere for the most part.
For sure.
Do you ever find those competitors that just try and get in your head or just try and bring you down, try and unscrew your light bulb to make them look a little bit brighter?
Yeah, I mean, there's always the odd person that tries to get in your head and whatnot. But once you get a program and you're thinking about all the positive stuff that Keith and Linda say there, it's pretty hard for somebody to get in your head. And it's actually probably much easier for you to get in their head because they're already in that negative space. So all it takes is a small suggestion from you.
Right.
And it kind of reverses the whole shenanigans, right?
Sometimes that suggestion's a piece of positive encouragement.
Yes, it can be a backhanded compliment, kind of almost.
Accomplice salt or...
Yeah, exactly.
But not quite like that.
Yeah.
But I found that too. Sometimes if he gives, hey, you're doing a really great job. I mean, you're on fire.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, boom, they tank.
Well, I think when you say stuff like that to people and their mental management program isn't as strong, you're adding pressure to those
Good
guys.
point.
Hey, you're killing it here.
Right.
Don't screw up.
That's what they're hearing.
And then that's what they hear. Right. And then it's like, oh man, I got to keep this up. And then it can crash and burn pretty easy at that point.
Do you ever use those tricks?
I don't.
No.
Nah,
it's just not worth it.
There's no need for me to do it. I'm so focused on what I have to do that I really don't give a crap what anybody else is doing. Mm-hmm. The only thing that matters to me is producing perfect shots every time I pull the trigger. So what everybody else's outcomes are or what's going on with them or what their score is or how they're feeling or how they're losing their minds on the range or how they're dancing with joy at their 50 with 9 Vs, don't care.
Right.
It makes no difference to me at all. None at all. I just carry on with what I got to do.
Oftentimes I encounter people and they don't have that positive approach to life. And you can see it. I don't know, I hate the term, but that's sort of the consummate loser, the person who's always $1 short and a day late. Or one of the things that Keith and Linda advocate, and they call it pretending to make it so. Mm-hmm. And they say this is probably one of the most controversial things we advocate, pretending that things were the way you want them until your self-image changes and things actually become the way you want them.
Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if that approach does work. They put a whole book out called The Secret on that. And it's been highly praised and panned by critics alike. But
for sure.
The whole pretending it's all good until it gets good, is that something that...
Well, basically, I 100% agree with that because what it is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you tell yourself that this is going to happen and you ignore the fact that it's not happening, eventually, if you have the basics and all the good stuff that you need to make it happen, it's going to happen. So if you can almost coach yourself into a good win like that or a good result out of the blue sometimes. Mm-hmm. I think you see it in matches when, whatever type of shooting, but somebody comes out of nowhere and they clean everybody's clock and whatnot. Mm-hmm. I guarantee they've been probably self-talking themselves into this point, and eventually it comes true. Now, the difficult part is staying there.
Maintaining that.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that come from behind or come out of nowhere and they blow everybody's socks off and then they're never heard from again.
See, I had that conversation this morning with another person and she said, I've always done better when there's somebody in front of me and I'm the underdog and I can just come out and excel.
Yeah.
Being in the front, there's a lot more pressure. We talked about this before, the Sports Illustrated curse.
Yeah.
There's only one place to go.
Yeah, for sure.
You're in the front.
Yeah.
And you've been in the front for a long time.
Yeah.
Do you find it easier to be the underdog and work forward, or do you find it easier to be in the front?
Honestly, I don't think it really matters where I am. The process for me is all the same, whether I'm in front, behind, or in the middle. I think last time we touched on a little bit about me knowing what it felt like to be behind and have zero pressure and come from behind, and to be ahead and so far ahead that It was not even a thing. I could probably skip a match and still win. And then I think we talked a little bit about being tied, which was a whole different factor. So for me, having gone through all three of those different sort of zones to be sitting in a competition and having experienced them all, I can tell you that for me, there's no difference between one or the other. The way to achieve what you need to achieve and to get the outcome you want is to do exactly the same thing in all three of those situations. And that is simply to focus on your performance and ignore everything else and make sure that everything you do is perfect.
Let's talk about in the moment. This is going to be the fun part.
This is already fun.
I know. So
I don't get to talk about this stuff with people that sort of get it usually. It's awesome.
So in the moment, you're there, you're at the range. Can you paint us a picture? What's it like? We come in day one.
Yeah.
Talk us through this.
Okay, so we're talking about like service rifle and...
Well, let's talk about your recent competition.
Okay,
because we still haven't told them if you've done well or not.
That's
on this.
right. So we shoot the national championships on Connaught Range in Ottawa, which is like the mecca of rifle shooting in Canada. I mean, that range has been there since the 1800s. Every rifleman that has done anything has gone through Connaught. People that were incredible shots during World War I and World War II, and rifle teams and guys that you hear about in books, they all went through Connaught. So it's a pretty amazing place to go and actually stand on it's like a hallowed ground,
No
really.
kidding.
Yeah, it's really something that you kind of got to experience. So the first couple times it's a little bit overwhelming, and you're kind of like, wow, this is the place where all that stuff I've read about and all these guys that I read about, this is where they did it all. And so you're there doing the same thing. So once you get past that and you've been there a few times, it's kind of like a second home almost, you know. Mm-hmm. For me, there's always, I won't say like nerves or trepidation, but there's always a little something about going there, knowing that you're almost holding yourself to the standard that went before you that's like really, really high. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's not nerves about the competition, but it's almost nerves about being able to present myself on the same sort of level as those guys that came before me. You kind of get it?
I get that.
So I'm always a little bit kind of weirded out by it when I get there. But then when I get there, I see the flags flying and the green grass, and the targets are 900 meters away, and they're so small that you can barely see them. And you walk out onto a range, and it's like a kilometer wide. There's like 70 odd targets there.
Wow.
And the wind's blowing, and you're looking at the flags going, oh yeah, this wind sucks already.
Yeah.
And I haven't even started shooting. And it's just like, I'm here, right? I'm going to conquer you.
Yeah.
Or you're going to conquer me, one or the other. But usually I like to think in the positive, obviously.
Yeah, the mental management process would dictate.
Yeah. So then you get there, and to be honest, the service rifle community is relatively small through the forces and through the elite level civilian shooters that are in the country, and even in the U.S., because we do get some that come up from the States. It's like seeing buddies that you haven't seen for a year.
Right.
And so it's a bit of a reunion at Connaught. There's a mess there, so there's always a few beverages to be had.
Yes.
Stories to be told. For me, there's a couple of mentors of mine that are still shooting. Dave Oakey, mentor of mine, is double Queen's medalist, ex-airborne guy, sniper, all this stuff. Amazing dude. Just to be able to hang out with Dave and talk shooting on a level like you and I are talking, and he fully gets it, and he has his ideas about how this works, and I have mine, and we sort of throw them at each other, and we're like, oh yeah, man, I never thought that's a really cool idea, you know. And then we discuss all kinds of stuff, and you're talking about the bullets and the trajectories and the wind calls that you made and different things that went on through the year. You shooting target rifle in Nova Scotia, and I'm shooting rimfire PRS matches in Vancouver, and you just have this meeting of minds almost, and it's amazing. And that's all before the shooting starts.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and then you get out on the range, and you get joined by probably about 70 or 80 Army guys, some that you know and some that you don't. And then the shooting starts, and it's game on at that point, and all that other stuff fades away.
Yeah.
And for me, anyways, the only thing that matters are those rounds that are in the gun and the way the sight picture looks on the target.
So total number of competitors that we had this year, roundabout?
I think it was about 140, but I'd have to go back and check. It's generally around the 150 mark somewhere, give or take 20 or 30.
Okay.
Back in the day when I first started doing it, you would get on the range back in the mid to early 90s, and there'd be 400 guys there.
Wow.
Yeah. I was still learning a lot back then, so I wasn't quite where I am now. The whole mental marksmanship program, I was doing a lot of it, but I had no idea what I was doing, which is something that Keith and Linda kind of really brought to light. They started mentioning all this stuff, and I was like, wow, I'm already doing that, but somebody's quantified why I'm doing it now. So
yeah, that helps, doesn't it?
Then it really started to make sense, right?
So how many relays were being run here?
This year, you had 4 relays. You had I think there was about 40 guys on each relay, 40, 50 guys on each relay. And 2 relays would be in the butts, and 2 would be on the line. 1 would be shooting, and the second would be standing by or scoring for the guys that are shooting. And then you would shoot your matches, and then you would go down to the butts and mark targets, and look at your scores and make sure your scorecard is all filled out. And then one of the relays would come out of the butts, and you just cycle through like that. And you do that at 200, then you do it at 300, and then you do it at 500.
Is there much gaming going on? Is there?
There isn't really any gaming in this kind of sport because you can't.
Right.
The best you can do to game things is to use some sort of souped up high-speed rifle and some sort of good ammunition and maybe some super high-end optic.
Super high-end quality barrel.
Yeah, that always helps. I guess that's kind of gaming, I suppose, maybe a little bit. But in the end of it, it doesn't matter what you're shooting. If the crosshair is not on the target when the trigger gets pulled, it doesn't matter if you got a $10,000 gun or a $10 gun. It's all going to end in the same way. So
how many days did this competition take?
Well, the whole DCRA National Service Conditions Championship runs over about a week and a bit, so almost 10 days.
Wow.
So the first portion that they shoot is pistol competition, which takes about 3 days. Those guys are amazing to watch. Like there are pistol shooters from Bruce Nuclear, some of the police departments. Mm-hmm. They get guys like Lance Espinoza that comes up from the USA that is like, he's an amazing pistol shooter. He cleans everybody's clock with a Glock 19, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, unbelievable. But so they come up and they shoot the pistol matches first. Then after they're finished, precision rifle matches happen, and those are partnered shoots where you're spotting for your partner, and those take, I think, 2 days. You shoot all the way from 200 meters all the way back to 900. This year, they changed the size of the scoring rings on the targets, and on the figure 11 target, they use the very small box as the V, so it's 2 inches wide by 4 inches tall, and you're trying to hit that at 7 or 8 or 900 meters.
Wow.
Actually, at 900, we were on a figure 12, which is a circular scoring zone, but at 6, 7, and 8, we were on the figure 11, which... And the scoring ring size doesn't change the further you get back. So in order to hit a V or an X ring at like 800 meters, you're looking at a 2 by 4 inch scoring zone.
A lot of things have to line up.
Yeah. And I mean, you miss by an inch one way or the other, and you miss your wind call a little bit, and you're probably not even the 5 box. So scores were a lot lower overall, but it was really challenging. Whether they keep it or not.
Right.
With that scoring is another question. I'm not 100% sure whether they're going to stay that way or go back, because I heard a fair bit of whining, guys going, oh, I shot a 37 and I'm in second place. Normally it would be a 50 with 8 Vs or whatever, but now it's a 37. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether they'll stick with it or not. Either way, it doesn't really matter. Everybody's dealing with the same scoring zone, so it's all good. So you shoot the precision stuff. Like I said, it's all spotted, so you shoot it with a partner. They can give you corrections. They can help you out. They can watch your rounds go in to the target via swirl and all that good stuff and help you through the competition. And then after that's finished, then they move on to service rifle, which is kind of like the granddaddy of the service conditions championships. It's been run for a super long time. Basically the same matches, I think, probably since probably at least the 70s or pretty close.
Really?
Yep, very similar. The cool thing about the matches is that they are a very basic test of marksmanship skill. Mm-hmm. You have deliberate fire matches where it's slow timing and you have lots of time to make a perfect shot. Then they have a snap type match where the target appears and you have a very small amount of time to actually shoot the target. Then they have a rapid fire one where you have a set amount of time and you have to shoot 10 rounds into 2 different targets in that time limit along with a mag change. And then they have a fire and movement. So you run a bit and shoot a bit and then run a bit more and shoot a bit more. And by the time you get, as you're moving down the range towards the targets, the positions keep getting crappier as you go. So by the time you hit 100, you're shooting standing and you're also breathing fairly heavily because you just run however many 100 meters that the match is. And they throw in snap targets at the same time. So the targets appear for a short amount of time. You have to manage your breathing and your sight picture and get a couple of shots off within 5 or 6 seconds usually. So it becomes very challenging. So super challenging shooting, but it's fairly basic processes that you need to master in order to do well at it. But it's amazing how many people, there's a lot of people that want matches that are more complicated and moving targets and all this other stuff. And yet when you look at their scores on the basic matches, you realize that they don't really even have the basic marksmanship skills mastered yet. They want to run before they're,
And we find that all the time too. At Silvercore, we get people, well, you got handgun 1, but I really want to do handgun 3, handgun 4, right?
Of course, yeah. People want to skip over the basic stuff.
But the perfection of the basics is what makes you good.
It's the foundation, right?
It really
build
is.
Everything else on.
Shooting is the actual, like you say, the pulling the trigger. That's simple.
Yeah.
The theory behind shooting is simple.
Yeah.
It's building that into, like you say, into the subconscious, and that's only done by hammering in the basics, walking your way through, and taking the next steps. It's a really straightforward process, and so many people seem to want to shortcut that.
They do.
I've never understood that. Like I get the cool. I've seen it on TV, and
I think that's mainly what it is.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I want to shoot moving targets, or I want to run around and shoot around corners and do all this cool stuff. And it's like, okay, but you're snatching the trigger and you can't hit anything. It's like, all right, carry on.
You started off. We're shooting this competition.
That's right.
Did it start well?
So in these matches, like I told you before, the 200-meter mound is the most important one for me. As long as I can shoot well in the positional stuff and put in a decent score, it's going to sound a little arrogant, but if I shoot a good score, I know I've already won. Because the 300 and the 500 are pretty much all prone, and I shoot them very well. And it's difficult, unless I have a real serious malfunction, to drop a lot of points in order to allow anybody to catch up to you. So my mental management program says if the 200 meter goes well, you're well on your way to keeping things where they need to be. So this year, not having had any practice other than a bit of visualization and living room kneeling and sitting practice, the 200 meter mound, I shot a 189 out of 200.
Wow.
Which is not where I want to be. I prefer to be in the mid 190s, which is usually sort of where I am.
Okay.
But a 189, there's nothing wrong with that.
There isn't, no.
And so when I came off of the 200 meter mound with a 189, I'm like, okay, that was a little sloppy. You could probably attribute that to not having shot your gun for a year.
Perhaps a little bit.
Perhaps a bit. There's definitely something to be said for actually getting down there and pulling some triggers in the positions that you need to do it. But it was kind of an interesting experiment with just the visualization and a little bit of dry training to see whether I could sort of be where I wanted to be. The answer was maybe not where you want to be, but you're probably pretty close. And so, I came off the line with it was a 189, I think.
So you're feeling pretty positive.
Yeah, I'm feeling positive after that. I'm like, okay, 189 is good. Did I tell you about my my little Bible book that I take with me?
Tell me about this.
That has all the scores and everything in it. Okay, so I have a book that I keep, and this is part of my secret stuff as well.
Okay.
So only you and your listeners will know.
They're getting the inside scoop
that's
right
right
now.
So every service rifle match that I've probably shot since about 2012, I have all the scores in this book.
Right.
In the book, I write down the dope that I use, I write down the score, and then any little notes to myself that are some sort of positive reinforcement. So in the book, I had my first national championship written in there, and it was like, hey man, just write this little note to yourself. People read it to be like, who is this idiot when he's talking to himself here? But basically it says like, yeah, good job. You did this good. Remember what this feels like, blah, blah, blah. And then each year that I've won since then, or any service rifle match that I've won, I write in the book and I write myself a little note. So when I go and I shoot a 189 out of 200, and I'm thinking, it's not bad, but that might give people a little bit of an open door to get in. Mm-hmm. I go back in the book and I look at other 200 meter mounds that I've shot and where I've scored a 189 or less than a 189. And then I flip the page and I look at the notes that I wrote to myself after I won, still with that score. Mm-hmm. So when I shoot a 189 now, I go back in the book and I look at another one that I shot a 189 at, and I flip over the page, and that was national championship number 3, mm-hmm. or whatever it was in the case. And so it just puts my mind at ease that you're good. Mm-hmm. Don't worry about that. You shot the 200 meter mound. You've got a decent score. Carry on shooting perfect shots for the rest of it, and the end result will be the one that you want.
So what happens if we lose that book? Get it back up somewhere?
The book is in my gun safe. No, honestly, I'm to the point now where I probably don't need the book. Mm-hmm. But the book is kind of it's a small comfort thing for me where I can flip into it. And it's weird just having the book with me is kind of like, I got the book, I'm good. Mm-hmm.
Well, you don't have any superstitious sort of got to wear this hat, got to wear...
Not really. My kid gave me a plastic Bruce Lee with nunchucks dummy.
Oh, I love it.
When he was, I think, about 3 or something, and I was going off to shoot. He's like, Dad, this is good luck. Okay. Yeah. So it's in my tack vest, and it's been there ever since he gave it to me. And I think it's turning purple. It's probably got mold on it. But it lives in my tack vest.
But Bruce comes with you.
Bruce comes with me everywhere. And whenever I shoot service rifle, yeah, Bruce is there with me. So that's about the only superstition I have.
I love it.
That I take with me. Yep.
So when you're shooting this match,
yep.
scores are going up. You get to see where they're at. Yep. We've gone through this before. Some people don't like looking at the scores.
Correct.
You like to look at the scores.
I do. And I think... relating back to that book is specifically why I like to look at the scores. I don't look at other people's scores. I don't care what other people are doing. I only look at my scores. Mm-hmm. Looking at the scoreboard is not really that important because I already have the scores written in my book after I shoot the match. They're all written down. So if I want to look, I just open my book and there they are. Mm-hmm. But it's always somewhat comforting to look at the scores in relation to other people's stuff, I guess, and go, your 189 was fine. You're in second place, or you're in third place, or you're in first place, whatever the case is, so that you're in the zone that you need to be in.
So you didn't know where you were after looking at your score? Did you have a bit of an idea?
I think I probably did look because they post them on the internet on a Dropbox page, so you can go and look. And I think I probably did. But it, like I said, it's just more out of curiosity than anything else. It has no effect on me. Like if I was in fifth place after the 200, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. Mm-hmm. That's fine. It's not a big deal. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I'm in first, it's the same thing. Okay, yeah, good. Carry on.
Do you engage with the other competitors during the competition, or do you kind of like to be left alone?
No, I don't search out any conversation usually with competitors, but there's a gang of guys that are kind of at the top end of the game, and in passing we'll be like, hey, did you have a good go? Yeah, it was good. Yep, okay. And most of us don't talk about anything funky like, hey, did you have any misses?
Right.
It's not like that at all. Right. Or hey, what was your score? It's not like that. It's like, did it go good? Yeah, it went good. Okay, good. Or I missed a wind call or whatever.
Sure.
But I try not to go into the negative side of things.
Well, it doesn't get windy on that range though at all, does it?
No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, missing a wind call is not that hard to do on that range. I think we touched a little bit about a record score that I missed last year just by a shifting flagpole.
Yes.
This year was a lot different. We can get into that.
Tell me. We're right here in the moment, so let's go through with the match.
Okay, so we shot the 200 meter. That was good. I shot the 300 meter. That was good. And then we got to 500 meters, and that was day 2.
Okay.
Because you shoot the 2 and the 3 on the first day, and then you shoot it used to be the 4 and the 5 on the second day, but they pulled the 4 for some reason this year. They wanted to speed things up.
Okay.
Old service rifle matches only used to be 2, 3, and 5 anyways. So they just went back to the old format, which is fine either way. It doesn't bother me at all.
Sure.
I kind of like the 400 because it's challenging. You're using small targets, and you're at a fairly long distance for a 223. Mm-hmm. But they didn't run it this year, so that's cool. Whatever. We get back to 500 meters, and it's the second day, and now things have all changed. And now we're dealing with winds up to 37 kilometers an hour, according to the Kestrel. So, and kind of the other crappy thing was they had taken down most of the flags on the range. So there was really only one flag in front of me that I could sort of key off of.
So why would they do that?
I'm not 100% sure. I don't know.
I guess the only positive out of that would be everyone's on the same field.
Yeah, but it kind of sucks when the flag's in a certain spot and there's people at the far end of the range that have to only look at that flag, but they're at a different angle to that flag, so they may not be able to see exactly what that flag is doing. Mm-hmm. So for me, I was lucky enough to be almost directly in line with the flag.
Okay.
But still, there were flags behind us. So, I mean, those are important flags to look at, too, because they can give you a little bit more about direction than perhaps a flag in front of you that you don't have the correct angle on. But anyways, nonetheless, there was only one flag. And so we're at 500 meters, and we've got these crazy winds rolling through. And, yeah, it was gusting up to 37K. And I'm thinking, oh, man, this is going to be something else. So at 500 meters, the first match is deliberate, which luckily enough is shot on a 4-foot frame. Okay. So you have 2 feet on either side of the center of the bullseye in order to miss,
right? So
that you can see where you're at. Any more than that, and if you're off the 4-foot frame, you're going to be in a bit of hurt because you're going to be you'll have no indication as to where you're going other than maybe perhaps seeing your splash in the dirt, in the sand, in the butts. So I'm an okay wind caller. I think I'm probably always going to be a student of learning the wind. So I looked at the flags and looked at what the grass was doing, and I made a mean wind call. Mean being like the average.
Mean, median, mode.
Yeah, exactly. I made a mean wind call, and I dialed it onto my scope, and we got down there on the deliberate, and you get 2 sighters, and then 10 on score. And I had, I don't know if you work in MILRADs or MOA.
Both.
Both. Yeah. Okay. So I had 2 mils of wind dialed on at 500 meters. And I fired the first shot, and it was barely on the 4-foot frame. It was like super edgy on the 4-foot frame. So I'm like, holy crap. So I cranked on a bunch more, and I think the second shot ended up in the center of the target, which was good. So, I mean, more of a fluke than anything, but...
Sure, you'll take it.
I'll take it. Yeah. Sometimes you got to be lucky it's better to be lucky than good.
Sure.
So I kind of had a feel for what the wind was doing when I cracked that shot, and so I just tried to let the shot break when the wind was kind of doing the same thing, and it worked out well. I think I ended up with a 49 or a 50 out of 50. I can't remember. I'd have to go back and check, but
it was look at the book.
Yeah, it was a good score.
Yeah,
but mind you, the bullseye is quite large at 500 meters. But
sure,
in that amount of wind and gusty wind, it's challenging no matter how you look at it. It's no easy task. Yeah. Then after that, we shot a snap, and you're still on the 4-foot frame at 500 meters instead of on a handheld stick target. So that went well. I don't even remember what the score was. I think the rapid went pretty well. It's also on the 4-foot frame. And then we have the rundown. Mm-hmm. The rundown starts with you running up on the mound at 500 meters, and you have 15 seconds to shoot 2 shots onto the 4-foot frame. So you start 10 yards behind the target, or 10 yards behind the firing point. You run up onto the firing point, you drop into the prone, and you shoot your 2 shots on the 4-foot frame in 15 seconds. Good. No problem. I had just shot all those shots onto the 4-foot frame, so as long as the wind conditions stayed the same, didn't change much, I'm good. The challenge comes after that, because then you're going to switch your sights, and you're going to dial off some wind, and you're going to run down to 400 meters, and you're going to shoot 2 more shots. This time, it's on a figure 12 handheld stick target that's 18 inches wide. Mm-hmm. So the elevation portion of it is not really a big deal. You have your dope, you know exactly where you're going to impact. But when you're dialing off 2.8 mils of wind and you have to dial some off each distance you run down, how do you accomplish that? Like, how do you know how much to dial off? Mm-hmm. So the challenge is making that wind call and dialing off the right amount of wind. So I got down there, I dialed off what I thought I needed. I fired the first shot and I saw a splash beside the target. It was a miss.
Yeah.
So I knew how far I'd missed by, so I just held over and let the second one go, and the splash was behind the target. So I'm like, okay, well, at least I got 1 out of 2 on that one, right? And the 400 really that's the challenging one because it's a very small target for 400 meters, and even without wind, it's fairly challenging. Right?
Sure.
So then you dial off your elevation again, and you make another decision on how to dial off more wind, and you run down to 300, and you shoot 2 more shots in the prone position on that same figure 12 on a stick. Then you do the same thing and you run down to 2. And at 2, you shoot your 2 shots in the sitting or kneeling position on that same figure 12 on a stick. Then you dial off your wind and your elevation and you run down to 100. And your last 2 shots are fired from the standing position at the figure 12 that comes up and only gives you a certain amount of time to shoot it. And I'm pretty sure that at 200 in the sitting position, I shanked one off the target as well because the wind was just buffeting you. Like it wasn't, I'm trying to hold stable, but like in the prone, you can kind of do it. But when you're sitting, the wind was pushing you around. And I think physically the wind just hit me at the wrong time and I touched it off and it impacted beside the target. So I had 2 misses on the rundown.
Sure.
So anyways, when it was all said and done, at 500 meters, I had shot a 175 out of 200. A 175 is not a very good score in my book.
Okay.
You shoot a 175 and you're probably not going to be in the top 10.
Okay.
So here I am thinking, oh man, you had 2 misses on the rundown. Not a heck of a lot you could have done about it, but you got a 175. So let's just hope that everybody else had similar problems and that, you're still going to be at the top of the zone. So, a little bit of doubt creeps in there and you kind of got to push it away.
This is where the mental management goes into overdrive. This is where it's easy to be mentally managed when things are going well.
It is. And I mean, the interesting part is that when you shoot the second stage, the first 2 matches you shoot are the 500 meter deliberate and the 500 to 100 meter rundown. So when you've shanked a couple shots off into the dirt and you realize that, hey, I got to shoot those matches again, then most people are going to be thinking about the last time they shot it.
Sure they will.
And, the last thing you want to be thinking about is, hey, I missed the last time I fired this when you're trying to do it again. And that kind of stuff creeps into your head. So you really have to sweep that stuff away and just carry on making perfect shots. So anyways, the 175, I'm thinking, oh man, if I'm in the top 10, this is going to be lucky. So eventually the scores come out and I think I was in second place with a 175.
Okay.
The average score was around a 150 somewhere. So there were a lot of guys that had shot a lot more misses or made way worse wind calls than I did.
A lot of people struggling with the same conditions.
Yeah, I mean, I felt for the Army guys because you're shooting against military, rig force and reserve guys as well. And they have to deal with the LCAN and trying to dial off the wind on that thing and figure it out. And the ammunition they use is not particularly good. It's okay as far as service ammo goes, but as far as match ammo, it's clearly not match quality. Plus the LCAN scope that they run is only 3.4 power. So, you're not even getting a very good sight picture through that optic. It's doable. Lots of guys do it very well, but it doesn't make it easy.
Right.
So a lot of guys had more problems, and I think the guy that was in first place was only 3 or 4 points ahead of me.
Okay.
I think it was a 180 something or somewhere along those lines, 178 or something like that. So I hadn't really dropped a lot of points, so I felt pretty comfortable with the 175 once I sort of saw where everybody else was. But yeah, that was like, holy crap, this is crazy. And then we went on and shot the second stage, and the second stage is really kind of where you have to put all that stuff aside and just do what you got to do because your mind tells you one mistake here and it's over. You won't be national championship again. But
so was your mind doing that?
It always does that, but you get to the point where it starts to do it. It's like, hey, one, and you're like, no. and you're like, I'm not doing that, mind. Thank you very much, but no. The focus for me is on firing perfect shots only, and that's it. So it went good. It wasn't my best performance due to a lot of factors, but it was enough, and I came out on top again with national championship number 6.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
That's fantastic.
It was good. I mean, these things I learn something every time, right? The mental management stuff is, there's always something that I get out of it. This time, maybe, that 175 taught me a few things. Like, I'm already kind of a never give up kind of guy. That's part of the reason why I have the book. If I pooch a match and shoot a 35 out of 50, I can go back and look at another one where I've shot a 35. And
I feel that.
And I look at the end result, and the end result is usually good. So I don't worry about a 35 anymore if I shoot a bad one. So I'm always never give up kind of guy, but that kind of reinforced it to me a fair bit. Everybody else is having to deal with the same things that you're dealing with. So you're all on a level playing field. Hopefully your wind calling and your subconscious trigger pulling will put you ahead of the game.
Well, before we talk about after the moment, I got a couple questions.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure I know how you're going to answer one of them.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about wind. Wind at target versus wind at shooter.
Yeah.
What's more important?
Well, it's all important.
Sure.
But the wind at the shooter has more effect on your bullet than the wind at the target.
Okay.
Unless there is no wind at you and there is a raging hurricane at the target.
Sure.
But even then, it's less than what would happen if there's even breeze where you are and nothing down at the target. So the reason for that is because the wind at you has more time to act on your projectile. So a little push at the muzzle of the gun equals a big distance off the target at the target. Whereas if you have a stiff wind at the target but nothing at you, your bullet has picked up all that momentum and it zips through the wind at the target, and it's going to get pushed off a little bit, but it's not nearly as much as if it's like an angular kind of thing, right? So hard to explain, but if you
totally get it.
Yeah, if you push the bullet off center and start it moving in a trajectory away from the target at the muzzle, by the time it reaches the target, it's going to be way off.
Sure.
So that's the important part.
Even though some would argue that the speed of the bullet is much higher and there's going to be much less effect of the wind, I've seen it argued back and forth. I had a good idea how you're going to answer this one, and you did, because it's how I feel as well too.
Yeah. I've seen it where you're laying down and you're shooting, and at you there's a little bit of a breeze going on, and you shoot a sighter, and whoa, hey, that thing's not where it was supposed to go. Right. So you dial on a bit of wind and you correct, and you're good to go. And I've had it other times where there's lots of mirage running at the target, probably to the point where you can't even see the mirage. It's laid over flat, and you know that it's rolling probably at least 12K, and you shoot with just putting one straight down the pipe, and it pretty much goes straight down the pipe through all that blazing mirage down there. Yep. So for me, the little pushes at the target or at the shooter are they have more effect than shooting through a wind down towards the target.
So the other question I have is the other shooters, when they're working the butts, there's the human variable. Yep. Do you find that plays in? Like sometimes you'll have a flash target that people hold up, and it's up well behind all the rest and faster than going down.
There's definitely some of that. Sure. At these competitions, the butts officers are usually on top of people pretty hard. Okay. And their timings, when they're taking the timing, say that it's a snap target and everybody's got a figure 12 on a stick that they're going to put up. The timing of the exposure is 6 seconds. Well, that 6 seconds doesn't start until all the targets are up. So your butts officer who's calling the timings will be back from all the targets, and he'll be able to see when the last target goes up, and that's when he starts his timing. Okay. But, like in the precision rifle matches, you shoot moving targets, which are basically targets that are operated by somebody walking with the target held over their head in the butts. You shot them. You know what the deal is. Oh, yeah. So people are different sizes and different strengths, and they walk funny, and they do all kinds of wacky stuff. And so occasionally you'll get targets that are smooth.
Yeah.
And occasionally you'll get targets that are kind of jerky, and you launch a shot thinking that he's just going to be smooth, and I don't know, a bug lands on his face or something, and he stops for a second, and you zip the round in front of the target, and you're like, what the heck is going on? So, yeah, I mean, there's always little bits and pieces of target operator error in there. But you know what? Honestly, that's part of the kind of the service conditions kind of thing.
So do we I've seen some people at these competitions and they get right upset, and do we just suck this up in service rifle and just say, hey, that's how she rolls?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, for me, if there's some sort of, there's a couple of different ways you can go. I mean, you can protest. So if you have a target irregularity, you can say, hey, look, my target fell off, or my target came up backwards, or the guy was super late putting the target up, or he was super quick pulling the target down ahead of everybody else. Mm-hmm. And as long as somebody on the line, like one of the firing range officers, the line officers saw that happened, then yeah, you're probably going to be able to either make up a shot or get a reshoot for the whole thing. So you can do it that way. I can't remember that ever happening to me. So it's kind of a non-factor.
Right.
If it happened, and it was something that was blatantly the fault of whoever was in the butts, I'd probably protest and try and get another shot or a reshoot or whatever the case may be. But if it's like a moving target and the guy tripped and it jigged at the wrong second when you squeezed it off, and you either shot it out the back end or you clipped a 4 or it didn't land in the center, it just is life. It is what it is, right? Yeah. I'm not gonna worry about little bits like that, because if you start to fret about stuff like that, guess what that's going to do? It's going to throw you completely off your game.
Well, your head's in the wrong place.
Yeah, totally.
If that's where you're always viewing it.
You can't be thinking about that stuff.
Yeah.
You just have to let those shots go and move on to the next one.
So we've talked about planning, preparation in the moment.
Yep.
And now, as Keith and Linda put it, after the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So you're coming off number 6. You've won 6 national service rifle competitions in a row.
Yeah.
And what do you do afterwards? Hey, that was cool. You leave. We start planning again. Big celebrate. Like,
yeah, how does it work?
How's it work? Like both on like what do you do in the moment? Obviously, there's a lot of excitement.
Okay, so in the second stage, the last match you shoot out of the 4 that make up the second stage is a 3 to 2 to 1 rundown. So after you've shot that, you move into the butts yourself and you score your target with the person that's in the butts. So you get to see the holes and they get to count the holes. You're not allowed to touch the target, but they count it off and you can look and make sure that it's good to go. So for me, I mean, I think I was about 20 points ahead of the next guy, so I was fairly comfortable. So I went into the butts, and in the second stage, I can't remember, but I don't think I had any really bad shots. Like, I don't think I had any misses that I could think of. So I got down there, and I was pretty happy with the way it went. Checked to make sure I had all my hits, good to go. And yeah, I mean, I think it was almost numerically impossible for the next guy to catch me, as long as I didn't really seriously miss 5 shots in one stage. So I was pretty happy when I got down there. Good to go, everything's good. Okay, so that should cover it. Pretty happy. First thing I do is I pull out my book and I write myself a note in the moment about what happened and anything that was good that I did. I think the note in the book this year was oh my God, 37 kilometer an hour winds. How did you just trust yourself, man? Because clearly what you did was pretty good. And number 6, yay, kind of thing. And then after that, the other guys that are within the top 5 or so that were sort of vying for the same thing, usually they sort of filter around and everybody sort of says how'd it go and blah, blah, blah. And it's kind of to the point where they're like, did it go good? Yeah, it went good. Okay, congratulations. It's not what was your score or anything like that. It was anything weird happen? Nope. Okay, good. Yeah, nice work kind of things. And we compare, and I always like to talk to the other guys and find out how it went, because there's guys shooting different calibers and different rifles and all kinds of stuff.
Sure.
So it's kind of neat to know what kind of shenanigans went on with a guy shooting a 308 or a 6.5 Grendel.
Right.
How did it go? Like, how is it to manage the recoil on a 6.5 Grendel in comparison to a 223? So those are kind of the things where we compare a little bit. So then after that, everybody sort of cleans up all the targetry, and everybody heads back up to the firing point. And at the firing point, they have the 2 chairs there. And all the scorecards get tabulated, and the winner gets actually 2 winners, 6 people in total. So 1, 2, and 3 in the military division. And then 1, 2, and 3 get announced in the open division, which the open division includes all the military guys.
Okay.
So they get to shoot kind of in 2 divisions. So in reality, an Army guy or a Navy guy or Air Force could take the top open. They could win the whole shebang altogether as a military guy.
Right.
I don't recall it ever having been done
Okay.
in recent memory, but it's possible. So then, everybody gathers around, and the chairs are there, and they call out number 3, and everybody claps, and number 2, and same thing, and then the national champ gets called up, and you go up, and usually there's a general or 2 there, and you sort of shake hands, and then you get in the chair, and your gang of guys. If you're an Army guy, usually your teammates carry you off. They rev up the bagpipes, and they march you off.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And you're in this chair, and they carry off, and your teammates seem to want to try and throw you out of the chair at some point. Or doing kind of a hip hip hooray thing, and if you're not holding on, you're going to get launched.
Yeah.
So you do that, and then they march you off the range from about the 600 meter mark to the sound of wailing bagpipes, and they take you back to the DCRA building, and there waiting for you is the head of the DCRA, and he's got 2 bottles of champagne, generally speaking, and they call you up, and you shake hands, and you and the other winner in the military category, you get to shake up your bottle of champagne and shoot it all over your teammates. and then the tradition is you take a giant swig out of the champagne bottle, and you pass it to your teammates.
Yeah.
And your teammates hopefully finish it off for you. But if they don't, they hand it back to you. You're supposed to drink the rest of it yourself. This year, the bottles were like these massive magnums of red champagne. I don't know why they did red champagne, because it stained everything that I had, because I was shooting it all over everywhere. So they handed it back to me, and there was probably 5 inches of champagne still left in the thing. So I'm like,
finish it up.
So I tried to get as much of it down as I could, and I was like, I got to drive in like 2 hours, so I can't. Right. I had to drive to another match. So I handed it off to some of my buddies on the French side of things, and they killed it for me, which was great.
Good for them.
Yeah, they were keen. So yeah,
and took one for the team on that one.
Yep, they sure did. And then so after that, then you have a couple hours, and then the award ceremony starts, and they give away all the trophies for the different matches and aggregates and all that good stuff. And there's some prizes that are drawn at the end from some of the supporting companies. International Barrels gave away some barrels and some 50% off gift certificates to well-deserving shooters. And then that's pretty much all she wrote. You pack up and away you go. And
sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's good. Then you probably have, generally speaking, you have a day to sort of unwind and relax, and the bar is open, so you're in there and you're having a few beverages. The last couple of years for me, I've had to actually pack up my vehicle and drive 6 hours to Meaford Military Range, where I shot a PRS match the very next day. So unfortunately, I don't really get to hang out and mill about with the rest of the gang. I had to pack up my crap and go.
I guess a bit of an aside, but beverages before a match, alcohol before a match, caffeine, are these things that you kind of stay away from, or do you just say?
Well, yeah, I mean, before a match, no. I mean, after, yeah, definitely. Caffeine, no. I try and avoid it as much as possible when I'm shooting. I like to cut off my caffeine at least a couple of days beforehand. And
you don't find that it's got an adverse withdrawal effect?
No, I have a weird tolerance to caffeine. I'm not sure what the deal is, but I can drink like 2 or 3 Red Bulls and go to bed.
Right.
It has like not much effect for me.
Sure.
I can feel it rev up my heartbeat a bit,
But you're still sleeping.
but I'm still sleeping. So it doesn't really bug me in that department.
So what about a mental debrief? We've talked about
Yep.
the jubilation afterwards, but a mental debrief, how soon after do you do a mental, like first, I guess I should ask, do you do a mental debrief?
Yeah, I mean, I always go back and I don't dwell on it, but I look at the areas that I need to improve upon and just think, okay, you need to do that. You need to do that better next time. And I mean, that starts really right after each individual stage that you shoot. So if you have a rundown and you had a miss, and you know why you missed. I mean, as long as it's not the wind buffeting you off the target, there's not a heck of a lot you can do about that. But, you know, if you had a bad wind call or whatever, you know, I make a little note to myself, you got to pay a little more attention to the wind. Or you have to be in a position a little bit better, or you need to make sure that you're, you know, you're not on the trigger too fast. In some cases, I've come up on the target and the shot's gone subconsciously before I was even really kind of ready for it to go, which in most cases is not really that bad of a thing. Yeah, because it's a subconscious shot. It's usually on the paper somewhere, but you know, there's always a little bit of fishing around trying to put it in the center of the target to get the most points out of it. And sometimes you snatch it off a little early and you end up with a 4 or whatever. But so the mental debrief starts anytime where there's a bit of stuff going on, but the mental debrief is really quick, and it's like, okay, just pay attention more to this,
Okay.
and then it's gone. It's back to business, right?
So,
And then at the end of it, I don't know if I would write anything in my book about anything I need to. I don't think I would. I think I keep it all positive in there, but there are definitely things that you have to think about at the end. And usually, if I walk away with one thing that I need to remember, that usually sorts it out for me. Like 2 years ago when I was nearly tied there, I think part of the reason I was nearly tied was I got a bit on the complacent side with certain things. So my takeaway that year was like, you are not good enough to be complacent in your shooting. You have to pay attention. So that was a good one.
in the book here, Keith and Linda talk about it's geared towards competitive shooters. It's geared towards law enforcement
Yep.
and military. So they give examples that are applicable to each different group.
Yeah.
But one of the things that they talked about after the moment is PTSD, and they expanded that into the competitive world as well.
Yep.
And they said, whether you win or lose, the most common reaction of the competitor is a feeling of being let down or disappointed, as in, is that all there is? Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that?
I'm not sure. I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, even when I shoot at a match and I don't do as well as I can, I always take something away that's going to make me a better shooter in the end. So, yeah, I mean, I guess there's a little bit of disappointment in that, hey, you didn't win this one or whatever. But, you know, it's I like to win on other levels too. You know, as long as there's something that I can take away that's going to help me at the next one, then I think I feel like a winner no matter what.
And that's sort of, unless I'm not quite getting the gist of what they're writing, my impression was that since it is targeted towards 3 different audiences, they were trying to just tie that one part into the competitive world where maybe it didn't quite have the same amount of impact as in the police or military world. So we got a couple of questions from people who've listened to to you speak in the past, and we've got one of them. Michael Ferguson comes up and asks, as a past precision rifle marksman with the cadet program, how does one get back into the sport without putting out a mortgage to afford it? Any tips?
Well, I think there's lots of ways you can get back into it. It just depends on what you want to do. Obviously, there's not a lot you can do about match fees and stuff like that, depending on the matches you want to shoot, or even if you want to shoot matches. I mean, there's lots of room for people to take targets out into the bush and just practice long-range shooting in the bush. As far as like firearms and whatnot, there's lots of good options that are relatively easily priced, reasonably priced, that can sort of get you in the door. a lot of those options are ones that you can upgrade eventually when you get to the point. Like when I just started out with a Remington 700, which wasn't anything fancy. It had a sort of a medium heavy barrel. It wasn't particularly heavy. And the thing shot okay. I mean, it shot probably 3/4 of a minute, 3/4 an inch at 100 pretty consistently with match ammo. And for a long time, that was more than good enough for me. I was still trying to figure things out and figure myself out. But there comes a point where you're going to start out shooting the gun or it's not doing what you need it to do. So then at that point, a lot of those firearms are kind of Mr. Potato Head. You can pull stuff off and put new stuff on. So then you kind of just upgrade as you need to go. You can start with a Remington 700 SPS with a Hogue rubber overmolded stock, and you can get them for like $700. In .308, you run some match ammo through there, and I guarantee it'll shoot you 3/4 of a minute, probably pretty consistently.
Sure.
Is it the best stock ever? No. It's rubber. It's kind of crap.
Yeah. But it gets you going.
It's a 20-inch barrel. It's probably not going to give you the most velocity, but you know what? It's a good place to start.
And what about the 22 matches that you're running here?
I mean, that's another thing that's sort of come to light in the last year or two. That is a really wicked way to start things out. So you can run it with a 22. You could run it with a tube-fed Cooey if you wanted to. You're not making it easier on yourself if you're doing it. But we've had guys run tube-fed Cooeys.
Yeah.
We have a guy that runs a lever action tube-fed gun with a scope put on top of that. Yeah.
Good for him.
And then we have guys that run like, a $5,000 gun.
Sure.
So, and everything in between. Tons and tons of people do really, really well with just straight factory 22s. The beauty of it is you can get it like a factory CZ, like a 455 or a 457. You can get it for like $500.
Yeah.
Throw a scope on there. As long as it has adjustable scope, you're good to go. And a couple of boxes of ammo for $15, $20 maybe.
Yeah.
And away you go. You're shooting precision rifle. And the cool thing about that is it's local, and you can, you're going to be shooting your 22 out to 300 meters. So,
where are you doing that, Mission?
Yeah, we do it up at Mission. Graham Foote and I run the action rifle rimfire matches up there. It's all on steel, so the feedback is immediate. You still got to deal with wind. You still got to deal with dialing your dope. All the exact same stuff. You're still going to shoot in funky positions. You're going to be shooting off of a rope. You're going to shoot through tires. You're going to do all kinds of crazy stuff. But it doesn't break the bank, and you're going to be there with a bunch of other people that are totally into it as well, and they're going to help you out in any way. So actually, it is a good thing you brought that up, because the rimfire is an awesome way to sort of get back into the whole swing of it. And all that stuff really transfers right over into the centerfire stuff. So a lot of the guys at the rimfire matches are guys that are shooting lots of centerfire PRS matches, and they do it to practice, because practice is cheap with a 22.
Well, there you go, Michael.
Yeah. Hope that helps.
Yes. And we got Adam Bach here. He says,
Adam,
most ranges in Canada are static.
Yeah.
How do you practice dynamic skills?
Dynamic as in like shooting and moving kind of thing?
Essentially. And I kind of paraphrased him here, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for service rifle, the stuff that I shoot, all the dynamic stuff is forward motion that you can do on a static range. You're running 100 meters and then you're shooting. There's lots of ranges where you can practice small amounts of movement, lots of 3-gun matches. They run them everywhere. I mean, if you're looking to get into dynamic stuff, that's probably where I would do most of the practicing. For the PRS and the precision rifle type stuff, the dynamic stuff is a very small portion of it. Really, you're probably moving 5 yards onto a target or onto a position and then setting yourself up. And really the most important part there is being able to find that comfortable position on a weird obstacle in a short amount of time so that you can start getting your rounds on target. So, I mean, as far as practice goes, try the rimfire PRS stuff. That's an awesome way to sort of get a feel for it.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for super dynamic stuff, then 3-gun. They run tons and tons of 3-gun matches all across the country. So you'll be able to find something somewhere to be able to do it.
Now, some of our listeners, of course, have already heard the podcast we did. We were talking about IBI and making barrels.
Yep.
So we've had a question come up.
Okay.
Is IBI going to get into pistol barrels?
Well, it's possible. Anything's possible. At this point, it's probably not going to happen anytime soon. Our focus right now is strictly on rifle barrels. Quite honestly, it would take focus away from what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, the most important thing for us is making sure that the barrels that we produce can keep up with the really, really good barrels that are already out there.
I think that's smart. Do what you do well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can always branch out later on, but I think right now we need to focus on what we're doing to make sure that our product is keeping up with everything else, if not better, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
We've had some pretty good results lately. We just had Adrian Robertson down at the U.S. National FTR Championships, and he ended up in second in the master class.
Wow.
With our first 29-inch 308 FTR barrel, and he had 32 rounds through it before he went to U.S. Nationals with it. It's brand new, basically.
That's it, eh?
Yeah, and he came in second, which is...
That's impressive.
At 600 meters. It was a mid-range match. So, yeah, it was pretty spectacular for sure. And that just... we just got word of that yesterday, basically. So that's pretty exciting. So hopefully, we'll start to branch out a little bit more. Clearly, if he's getting results like that...
You're doing something right. I was really, really happy with the 6.5 Creedmoor and the Seiko 85.
Yep, that's good.
Did a video, if anyone wants to, who's listening to this,
Yep.
you can go to the YouTube channel and check it out. But
Awesome.
It's accurate. It does what it needs to do. I just got to make sure I keep doing what I need to do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I hopefully you smack a moose with it.
Oh, well, tomorrow, leave for that. Tomorrow out there.
I'm jealous. I don't go for my moose hunt until the 3rd.
Oh, yeah?
So, yeah, it's going to be good.
Well, I'm fingers crossed, don't want to jinx it, but
Yeah.
looking forward to it. It'll be a good trip.
Yeah, it should be pretty exciting. You
If
betcha.
I do smack a moose, I'm sure I'll have to do a blog post or we'll
Yeah,
talk
and you
about
better
it.
take some pictures that I can put on the website.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Rifle mounted in the rack, of course. Usual.
Well, thanks very much, Ryan. Really
You bet.
appreciate it.
Anytime, brother.